a deadly sin and a primal force.
Greed is one of the strongest motivators of murder.
A desperate businesswoman kills for cash.
She would do anything to get it, including murder.
A bizarre love tryst leads to a savage murder.
He just saw his internal organs laying outside of his body.
And a midwife turns from caretaker to cold-hearted killer.
Most of us could not contemplate murdering small babies, our own or anyone else's.
These are deadly women, warped by greed, prepared to spill blood for money. On an isolated farm in New York's Catskill Mountains,
What are you doing here?
a confrontation.
This is private property.
The owner thinks she's caught two trespassers.
I'm sorry, I cut you really. Well, go and
The truth is much more frightening. The intruders are killers.
5 minutes. That's all I'm giving you. 5 minutes. You've got 5
She's face to face with a deadly woman who has a taste for money and murder. Eva Coo.
Eva Coo is like a natural predator. Money was Eva's primary motivation, and she would do anything to get it, including murder.
Eva Coo is a sharp businesswoman. At the height of Prohibition in the 1920s, she runs the busiest speakeasy in town.
Little Eva's Place, it was called. Lots of loud music, lots of women, lots of alcohol, and everybody visited Eva Coo's place that wanted a good time.
New York playwright Isaac Rathbone has turned Eva's sordid life story into a stage production.
The story of Eva Coo is the story of survival. You have a woman who wants to survive on her own, and she will go through any means necessary to survive. There are stories of her having the sheriff's department and the police in her back pocket by offering them alcohol and women so that they would kind of turn a blind eye to her operations.
Eva's Place is home to a cast of characters. The resident barfly is Eva's slow-witted handyman, Harry Wright.
Harry Wright, or as he was known around the town, Gimpy Wright, was an older man in his 50s who lived with his mother. He was crippled, he was an alcoholic. There are stories of him drinking himself stupid, so to speak.
With his mother now dead, Harry is in Eva's care.
You have a side of Eva that takes in kind of lost souls. A lot of people who hung around the inn were alcoholics, were desperate women looking for a way to make ends meet.
One such woman is Martha Clift, who's found a surefire way to make a little extra money.
Martha was very subservient to Eva, and it's very apparent that she did whatever Eva told her to do.
Before long, that will include murder. For ex-FBI profiler Candace DeLong, Eva Coo's story fits a familiar pattern.
It's more common for women than men to have greed as a motivator for murder.
With business booming, Eva's greed is satisfied. Until disaster. The Great Depression hits. The good times run out.
We start to see a more desperate businesswoman as opposed to a shrewd and powerful businesswoman.
Historian Scott Christensen says the Great Depression triggered a great surge in crime.
It was the golden age of gangsters in the United States. There were many people who resorted to desperate means in order to survive.
Poverty-stricken and desperate, some women took a deadly gamble on insurance fraud.
It was the leading cause of execution of women in New York at that time. If somebody committed insurance fraud and committed a murder, the chances were that they were going to be sentenced to death.
Eva is in dire straits. Her gaze moves to Harry Wright. The slow-thinking drinker is in her way.
As the Depression rolls on and Eva starts to lose money and lose clients, he becomes a bit of a burden on her. She can't afford to keep herself fed and keep her business on operation, let alone paying for Harry's addiction to alcohol. By 1933, as Eva has hit rock bottom economically, she decides that she is going to take out an insurance policy on Harry Wright and murder him.
Martha is also greedy. For a cut of the insurance money, she'll help kill Harry. It begins at the insurance office. Eva takes out over a dozen separate policies on Harry's life.
She took advantage of him as much as anyone could.
If he dies accidentally, she will receive around $12,000. An accident is exactly what Harry is going to have. Greed has driven women to murder for centuries. Poverty adds to the temptation. Eva Coo's business has been crippled by the Great Depression. She needs money fast.
Eva was able to channel her desire for more money into killing because it was an easy means to an end.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether you could borrow some muscle.
Harry Wright has a price on his head. Thousands of dollars worth of life insurance taken out by Eva Coo and her friend Martha Clift. For them to collect, Harry has to have a little accident.
Everybody knew Harry. They knew he was a drunk. It wouldn't be surprising that he'd perhaps gotten drunk and wandered in front of a car and gotten hit. It was a good plan in that respect. Or so it seemed.
Eva and Martha drive Harry to a deserted farm on nearby Crumhorn Mountain.
Crumhorn Mountain was very desolate at the time. It was very isolated. Not too many folks lived up there, and it was the perfect place for Eva to bring Harry Wright to kill him. She came out wielding a large wooden mallet and struck Harry on the head. It's alleged that Harry Wright's last words were to Eva, and he said, "My God, I can see why you brought me up here now."
No, Eva! No! No,
But
Eva!
this insurance job has to look like an accident.
No! No! No!
It's the perfect crime. As long as there are no witnesses.
Hurry up! Cover him!
What are you doing? We are out for Sunday drive, and this is private property.
When angry farm owner Eva Fink suddenly turns up,
I'm sorry, I had to relieve myself.
Eva decides attack is the best defense.
Eva stands her ground, tells Eva Fink to go ahead and call the police. It was a real gutsy confrontation.
You have a nice day.
Eva and Martha get away with murder. They dump Harry's bloodied body in a roadside ditch, just a few hundred feet from Eva's inn. The coroner's verdict? Hit and run. It seems the awful truth will be buried with Harry.
Eva then went to cash in the insurance, and it was at that point that the problem developed.
Nice to see you again, Miss Coup.
Eva is a little too eager to get her hands on the money.
The insurance agent, looking into the claim,
It's warm, isn't it?
Really?
apparently became suspicious.
I'm sorry, I'm just remembering.
He knows fraud is a common scheme, especially among women.
I have the lady in my office at the moment. She appears to be extremely nervous.
Alerted by the insurance agent, authorities demand a new autopsy. Harry gives up Eva's secrets from the grave.
Harry Wright had no broken bones below his chest. His rib cage has collapsed on his lungs, and he had an injury to the head caused by the mallet. They thought that was a little suspicious for a hit and run, seeing he had no injuries to his legs or to his hips.
It's a theory confirmed by forensic pathologist Janice Amatuzio.
There's a different pattern we see when an individual is standing upright and is struck by a car. And those injuries usually are on the lower extremities, they're on the feet, the ankles. We look for what are called bumper fractures. However, if they're laying on the roadway and a vehicle just simply drives over them, the injuries are distinctly different. We don't get the bumper fractures to the lower extremities. We tend to get the crushing type injuries.
Forensic evidence is bringing Eva's grand plan undone. And when Eva Fink reports her odd encounter on Crumhorn Mountain, the police make their move.
After 2 days of interrogation with no sleep, no food, no drink, Martha Clift confessed, but said that Eva had killed Harry Wright.
Her confession spares Martha the death penalty. She gets 13 years.
Martha Clift had actually committed the murder. She'd driven the car repeatedly over Harry, killing him. He was not yet dead from the stroke of the mallet. She'd carried out the murder as much, if not more so, than Eva.
Eva Coo is not so lucky. found guilty of first-degree murder. She is executed in the electric chair on June 27, 1935.
There are two sides of Eva. One is a very caring and giving person. The other one is a cold-blooded killer. It was a shame that the darker side, I guess, had taken over and she had decided to kill this man who she swore that she would care for and nurture and protect. To me, that's the saddest part of this story.
Some women are down to their last dollar when they make the decision to kill. But greed also stalks the wealthy. Sometimes having everything is not enough.
She is really, in my mind, a very despicable human being.
To me, that level of greed is so astonishing. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
She's just an evil person.
1999, the opulent suburb of Toro Canyon in Austin, Texas. Millionaire TV executive Stephen Beard jolts awake. He has no idea what's wrong. Then he reaches down. There's a gaping wound in his stomach.
He just looked down and saw his internal organs laying outside of his body.
Get an ambulance, quick!
He thought he'd exploded.
Paramedics fight to save the 75-year-old.
I had a call from emergency. Please tell me what's going on. Steve!
Woken by the commotion, Stephen's 37-year-old wife, Celeste, arrives from her separate bedroom. No one is sure what has happened until police find a vital clue. Stephen Beard has been shot.
When there is a shotgun blast to the abdomen, multiple pellets are going to be perforating the stomach, causing leakage of hydrochloric acid. The pancreas, causing leakage of all of the digestive enzymes. And then, perhaps most importantly, multiple shots to the intestines is going to cause leakage of bacteria. It's a very slow and painful death.
Ballistic tests on the shotgun shell lead police straight to the killer. Tracy Tarleton, a friend of the family. But this is no open and shut case. It's a sordid web of sex, lies, and money. One that draws in crime writer Diane Fanning.
They knew that Tracy had pulled the trigger, but they suspected someone else was involved. But Tracy just wouldn't talk.
Why? Why did you do it? We have significant...
Tracy has a secret.
I've been through this before. I thought it was a way we could be together.
She's in love with the dead millionaire's glamorous young wife, Celeste. But Celeste Beard is not the woman Tracy thinks she is.
Celeste Beard had a very rough childhood. There was a lot of instability, alcohol abuse in the family, and she really had it rough.
Celeste grows up to become a teenage mother with a string of broken marriages.
Sir, Mrs. Beard, how are you today? Would you like some...
By her mid-30s, Celeste is a struggling single mother working at the Austin Country Club. Desperate for money, and lots of it.
It's a beautiful day out there, isn't it, Mrs. Beard?
To use the old-fashioned term, Celeste Beard was a fortune hunter, and she was determined to make her way in the world on the back of someone else.
You're lucky, aren't you? You have a wonderful, wonderful husband, sir.
When she meets Stephen Beard, she hits the jackpot.
At the time, Stephen was married to Eloise, and from everything everyone has said, they had a wonderful, happy marriage. Then Eloise died of cancer. And when that happened, Celeste knew what she wanted.
Now a lonely widower, Stephen Beard is easy prey for Celeste.
She paid attention to him. That's what he needed at the time the most, was someone to pay attention to him. And he just went hook, line, and sinker.
To daughter Becky Beard, Celeste's motive is obvious.
I think it was money. I think Celeste was after his money.
But Stephen is entranced, becoming husband number 4. With riches beyond her wildest dreams, Celeste launches an epic shopping spree.
She was insane about spending money. She could have gone a year and a half wearing a different pair of shoes and purse every day and not run out. At one point, he gave her $1 million outright, and she went through it in record time, like 6 months.
Hey!
The only thing Celeste isn't willing to spend is time with her husband.
Come on, Celeste. What time it is?
She had married him only for money, so obviously she didn't find this 75-year-old man sexually attractive. And she really didn't want to be sexually involved with him.
Sorry, Mom.
Stephen Beard is happy until the money starts to run out. He wants to cut off her cash supply. But Celeste can't survive without money and says she'll kill herself to keep it.
Celeste threatened suicide when Stephen wanted to cut off her supply of money because for Celeste, shopping was like heroin. She had to do it. Every time she bought something, it made her feel good. But for Celeste, there was never enough. 50 million wouldn't have been enough.
Suicidal, Celeste is committed to a psychiatric hospital. It's a fatal move. Waiting there is an unstable patient looking for love. It's Tracy Tarleton, Stephen Beard's killer. Celeste Beard is a fortune hunter. Her prey is millionaire husband Stephen Beard, but he's getting jumpy.
When Stephen threatened to take away her credit cards, it threatened her very self-esteem.
After threatening suicide, she's placed in psychiatric care and meets Tracy Tarleton.
Tracy was an emotionally unstable woman who had been in and out of hospitals for depression and other disorders for quite some time.
Lonely 35-year-old Tracy hungers for love in the same way Celeste craves money. She's infatuated with this glamorous new patient. And Celeste leads her on.
Tracy Tarleton loves Celeste Beard. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Prosecuting attorney Gary Cobb.
Celeste Beard, I don't think ever loved, maybe didn't even like Tracy Tarleton, but she was willing to engage in a lesbian relationship in order to get what she wanted.
Celeste used sex to get what she wanted, and what she wanted was money.
Outside hospital, the affair intensifies.
There she is.
And it's anything but a secret.
We had pictures of them together looking like a couple. We had evidence that they were going to shows together. We had evidence that they were going to couples counseling together. We had evidence that Celeste Beard had brought Tracy a particular kind of ring to wear to cement their relationship.
Celeste can't stand her millionaire husband, Stephen, even drugging him so she can sneak out. But she can't afford a divorce.
Because Celeste had signed a prenuptial agreement, she was only guaranteed a minimum amount of money if she divorced Stephen. And he had already given her that money and she'd blown it.
Well, Miss Tracy is a sharpshooter.
Blinded by greed, she makes a decision. Stephen has to go.
The solution for her was, if I kill him, I can have a lot of money and it'll all be mine.
In Lovelorn Tracy, Celeste has found a willing accomplice.
I think for Celeste and Tracy, they had a master-slave relationship. Celeste was the master, Tracy was the slave.
Tracy's master has a job for her.
Celeste planned the killing out very carefully. She drugged her husband's drink to make sure that he fell asleep. She went into the other wing of the house where she could justifiably say she heard nothing. Then she left the doors open so that Tracy could sneak in.
Tracy has her own reasons for wanting Stephen dead. He's the one thing standing between her and true love. Tracy's faith is absolute. She assumes Celeste will get rid of the evidence.
Celeste Beard never attempted or intended to pick up the shotgun shell. And the police immediately go to Tracy Tarleton's house. And Tracy's not a very good criminal. She was not a person who had the proper frame of mind to kill somebody. She's already feeling guilt about it. She immediately tells them, while they're at her front door, yes, I have a shotgun.
Tracy Tarleton pays a high price for love. Sentenced to life for murder. But Celeste is still under suspicion.
I had a call from the deputies.
It's okay. The medics have her.
Steve, what's going on? Please, can you...
If I was the first officer on the scene in a house where a married man had been shot in his own bed and his wife wasn't sleeping with him, the very first thing that would occur to me is that she was somehow involved in the shooting.
She had nothing to do with it.
They kept pressuring Tracy, trying to get her to give up Celeste, because they knew there was no reason for Tracy to do this completely on her own.
Tracy stays silent, waiting in jail for the woman she loves. Celeste waits for no one. She has Stephen's money. Now she wants more.
It was not till a year later that Celeste went and married husband number 5 in Aspen, Colorado.
Tracy Tarleton reads one day in the newspaper that Celeste Beard has remarried. She is shocked by that. But what that drives home is Celeste Beard never loved her, never cared about her, and only used her.
That bitch, she used me.
Furious, Tracy breaks her vow of silence.
What did Celeste make you do?
She made me shoot her husband.
Celeste Beard is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life.
It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. It was, thank you, Lord.
What brought Celeste down was greed, self-centeredness, and a willingness to do anything she wanted, no matter who stood in the way.
This is a woman who showed up at his house when she came to live with him with a box that contained everything that she owned. One box. And he gave her mansions, gave her lake houses, gave her entree into a society she never would have been able to step her dirty little feet into. And for that, she turns around and murders him.
Sydney, Australia, 1892. In a working-class suburb, plumber James Mahoney is digging a backyard trench.
He found more than the pipes that he was looking for.
It looks like a bundle of rags. But inside, the tiny body of a dead baby. It's a gruesome mystery. Whose child is it? How did it die? The answers will leave a nation appalled.
She was a very vindictive, a very spiteful, and a very powerful lady.
Very strong, aggressive woman, and felt no shame, no guilt whatsoever.
Most of us could not contemplate murdering small babies, our own or anyone else's.
Life in the 1890s is harsh, especially for someone like 18-year-old domestic servant Amber Murray. Unmarried and pregnant, shunned by society, Amber will be forced to give up her baby.
Having a child out of wedlock was frowned upon. The women who chose to go ahead with the pregnancy rather than have a risky abortion, when the bub was born, they would leave it with people they called baby farmers.
According to crime writer Paul B. Kidd, baby farming was a booming business.
The mother would pay them a weekly allowance to mind the child, and then when the child was old enough, they'd reintroduce it, boy or girl, back into the family as a niece or a nephew.
With son Horace just 3 weeks old, heartbroken Amber seeks out experienced midwife Sarah Macon. The 47-year-old has spent her whole life caring for infants. Sarah and her husband John will add the baby to their growing nursery for a fee.
After the initial payment, it's 10 shillings a week.
The vast majority of the baby farmers were good and decent people, midwives who looked after the children on the allowance that the mothers gave them.
Don't you worry about little Horace, he'll be all right.
John is reassuring. It won't be forever. She can visit any time. But Amber has made a tragic mistake. Sarah Macon is more than a midwife and mother. She's a murderer.
The 1890s was a period of major depression in Australia. They were grim times. They were as grim as the 1930s depression in some people's estimation.
Sydney's official historian, Shirley Fitzgerald, says poverty forced many to extremes.
The reality day to day for people was a hard grind, high infant mortality rates, high death rates, insecurity in the job markets. It was a very harsh life.
But greed drove the Macons over the edge.
They're ignorant, they're poor, they're desperate, they have a number of children of their own.
The fees from baby farming go further if you don't have to spend them on the baby. Amber will never hold her son again. Little Horace is already dead. His body buried under cover of darkness.
In order to kill another person's baby just for money, someone would have to be a stone-cold sociopath.
Amber's baby is not Sarah Macon's first victim. And he won't be the last. But no secret can stay buried forever. Sydney, Australia, at the end of the 19th century. Sarah Macon is a baby farmer, paid to care for illegitimate children. But a tiny body has been found buried in a backyard. Sarah's dark secret is unearthed. The whole garden is a graveyard. Sarah Macon is a serial killer.
Seven little bodies came in, 7 little bodies went out the back door into a hole in the ground. It had never been determined if they were buried alive or how they really died.
The manner in which Sarah disposed of the bodies of the babies, as if they were nothing more than a piece of trash, speaks to the core of her being. She felt nothing. She didn't even have enough regard to bury these babies properly.
Once the babies are dead, the Macons collect more payments. To keep one step ahead, they are constantly on the move. Time after time, mothers turn up to visit their children, only to be greeted by unfamiliar faces.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Macon. Would you mind if we ask you a few questions? Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Macon.
Police finally track the Macons down through tenancy records.
Constable, I'm going to have a look outside.
Those same records reveal they have moved 25 times in 18 years.
And previously, you were living in Barham Street. My understanding is that you are baby farmers, is that correct?
The police excavated in at least 3 of the backyards where the Macons had lived at various times.
Had any more children under your care?
They found babies ranging from fairly recent burials back to those who were only skeletons, so clearly they had been engaged in this operation for quite some time.
In total, the police had unearthed 14 infants' bodies in the backyards.
For Sarah Macon, babies are an easy target. They are weak, unable to fight back.
Babies are at the most risk in our society to be discounted or hurt, probably because they haven't formed a personality. Sometimes people just don't see them as persons.
For years, these baby farmers sowed their wicked crop, harvesting money from desperate mothers, then disappearing.
The fact that this went on for years and involved a lot of planning and cover-up shows Sarah's above average intelligence.
Police may have caught Sarah Macon, but there's a problem.
It was very difficult to get a conviction because the fact that you've got babies buried in your garden doesn't actually prove that you have murdered them.
In the end, Sarah is betrayed by just one of her 14 victims. Amber Murray's little boy, Horace.
In the case that the Macons were convicted for, the baby had been buried only 2 days after having been delivered as a apparently healthy baby, and the woman was able to identify the clothing that the baby was buried in.
Sarah and John Macon are both sentenced to death. John dies on the gallows. Sarah is shown the mercy she never showed her tiny victims. Her death sentence is commuted to life behind bars. But out of Sarah Macon's great evil came some long-lasting good.
It led to a change in the way the state saw its obligation to its children, and it resulted in the development of child protection and child care legislation.
I find the story particularly sad because here were women who accidentally got pregnant but still wanted to raise their child. So they find someone that they think will take care of them for a few months. And it turns out they turned over their most precious thing to someone who disregarded it and killed it. I don't know how people live with something like that.
These deadly women chose money over morality. The lure of an easy dollar drove them to unspeakable acts. Threatened by poverty, Eva Coo was happy to cash in a man's life. Celeste Beard had everything, but was destroyed by her own insatiable greed. And Sarah Macon's desperate need for money cut short 14 young lives. Desire for the dollar is a potent force. These deadly women were happy to spill blood for money. But in the end, they were left with nothing.